I believe Republicans provide better governance in pretty much every single area.
Yeah.
Better financial stewardship,
100%.
better protection of the population, better at law enforcement, better at cutting taxes, better at eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. Democrats should be embarrassed and humiliated for what was found. But you know what? Republicans let some of that stuff go too.
Hey, welcome back to the For Liberty and Justice podcast, where we seek to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice. I've got my co-host with me right here, Josh. We love you, Josh. Josh been holding down the fort while I was in Austin for our legislative session. We gave you a legislative update just a couple of weeks ago, going through everything that that the Lord did in Austin this last session and all of our conservative warriors that are fighting. Today, we have the honor and the privilege of having one of my friends, but not just my friend, a true conservative warrior for the cause and someone who is leading the county as our Tarrant County judge, Judge Tim O'Hare. Thank you for coming on.
Good to be here, guys. You know, the whole county judge thing, I still get people that ask me, can you help me get out of a speeding ticket? And, do you give harsh sentences? And it's such a weird name.
Where's your
thing.
road?
Yeah, that's right.
Don't own one.
Yeah, clerical road.
Yeah. So, in a lot of places, they call it the county executive. It's really more like it's really more like the governor of the county.
Truly,
but
yeah.
you only have one governor. But when judge, that still seems so weird when you say that. I'm like, I'm not a judge.
Well, we've had you on here before, but I think it's important to give kind of a rundown. Like, what does a county judge do, and what made you even want to run for that office? Yeah,
so county judge is the chief political executive of the county government in the state of Texas. Position was created, I forget, it was something around 1850 or something. I happen to be the 33rd county judge in the history of Tarrant County. And the chief political executive, you preside over the commissioner court meetings. The commissioner's court is the 5-member body that governs county when it comes to tax rates, budgets, policies, things like that. You got to remember, in county government, it's very, very similar to like state government. There is a governor who is essentially the CEO of the state government, but not all powerful. Subject to legislature, subject to judicial, just like we have in the federal system. This is kind of a combination, this commissioner's court thing, of executive and legislative. And we set the tax rates on the commissioner's court for the county property taxes, for the hospital district property taxes. We approve the budgets of both entities, the county government and the hospital district, but we don't run the hospital district. That's run by a board and the person that they hire to be the CEO of the hospital. There's 69 elected officials, I think, in Tarrant County, and the county judge is the boss of none of them, just like the governor is not the boss of any legislator, but has tremendous power and influence. Part of it's the bully pulpit, but part of it is the county judge has statutory duties and authorities that commissioners don't have. Commissioners actually have some statutory duties county judge doesn't have when it comes to road and bridge funds. But it is basically overseeing the county government operation, the facilities, policies, pay increases, health insurance benefits. You're overseeing all of that. A lot of people don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Related to Governor Abbott. The governor oversees benefits that state employees get. Well, can veto something or not.
Yes.
Y'all have to set that at the legislature. So big job, big county. We have 2.2 million people in Tarrant County, which I believe
largest red county in Texas.
I think it's the largest red county in America.
Yeah.
And would put us in, I think we would be the 37th state by population if Tarrant County was its own state.
Wow.
Which is kind of remarkable,
I didn't realize that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's bigger than New Hampshire.
Yeah,
it really is.
And hotter.
Yes, that's for sure. And New Hampshire, it's funny, it distinguishes the state laboratories. New Hampshire doesn't have a county commissioner, doesn't have a commissioner's court. So when I got to Texas from New Hampshire as a former state legislator, this was totally new to me. I was like, wait a minute. I was just as ignorant as everybody else. I was like, wait, where is the robe? Wait, what is the count? Why is the guy not wearing a robe?
Yeah.
You know, so
I'll still have people call our office. I say still. I mean, people call our office and, hey, my friend got this sentence and it was not fair. And, I need you to talk to the DA and go, like I'm the DA's boss.
Yeah.
That's not quite how this works.
So as Texans, especially as believers, I think a lot of times, you mentioned the governor. We know who our governor is, Governor Greg Abbott. We know who our president is, greatest president of all time, President Donald J. Trump. We know these things. We forget that really what changes our life day to day is our local government. I would venture to say that the decisions you're making on a daily basis are going to affect people in Tarrant County far greater than the daily decisions of our governor are, because they're touching that person immediately.
100%.
Even at the state level, if we cut property taxes, it doesn't really matter if we don't have a local government that's doing the same thing back home.
Yeah, I always say this. What we do at the county level, what they do at the city level, school district level, has way more impact on your day-to-day life than anything that's going on at the federal government. And state government, closer, obviously, but what we do has such a tremendous impact. And it's so amazing to me that so few people know what county government is or does.
Yeah.
I will tell you, county government is the gatekeeper to law and order for a county. It's where the criminal courts, county government. The DA's office, county government. The sheriff's office, which does jail and operations, patrols, investigations, county government. A huge chunk of what county government is law enforcement, law and order. It's the justice system. And people, don't realize it.
Right.
And the county's going to determine whether or not you truly have a law and order place to live or you don't.
Right.
And as we've seen in cities all over the country, in counties where it's Democrat control, this is where you have riots break out.
Yes.
This is where you have the looting. This is where you have, smash and grabs. In Republican-controlled cities and counties, you just don't see that because they're going to stand up for the business owner and the people. They're not going to let that hooliganism happen. It's a sad place where we've gotten in our country where literally that's some kind of virtue or badge of honor that this goes on in a city or county that you run if you're a Democrat.
Yeah.
It's unfathomable, really.
Yeah, Nate, if I may, there's a direction that I think is important to go with this conversation. And that's something that recently popped up, something that you've been supportive of, Nate, and you, Judge, and that's redistricting. And so that recently passed. It was a 3-2 vote, from what I remember. Explain what happened in redistricting and why that's important.
Well, before you do it,
yeah.
I just have to say, I am so grateful that you have the courage to just do the absolute common sense thing to make our county stronger. But the opposition to common sense today is just insane.
Yeah, there's some interesting characters you're into.
You endured how many hours of and you endured it. It was just, hey, I was elected. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to receive it. You were there. I mean, the testimony against y'all, by the way, had nothing to do with redistricting and everything to do with just name calling, you name it. So tell us about redistricting, but also talk to us about the resistance against common sense.
Yeah. We'll start with the resistance against common sense. You would not believe some of the emails and messages that we have gotten. I mean, some of the most vile things you could ever possibly imagine. You're a pedophile. Your kids should be raped. Just crazy stuff. People are just unhinged.
Yes,
and I think it just boils down to something very, very simple. People need the Lord.
Yeah,
it's just real simple.
That's true.
And what I see from some of these folks, people said, "Well, you didn't listen." I listened. And what I heard was, we don't want these folks picking our leaders. That's what I figured out.
Yes.
So redistricting. Here's what redistricting. It's real simple. We have 4 commissioners in every county in every state in Texas, 254 counties. There is a map for each county that determines where your precinct is, where you live, commissioners' court precincts. So, these were not God-ordained maps that existed immediately after the seventh day. These were created by people and they have been revised by people over the years. That's our political process. So these 4, county judges elected countywide, but the commissioners are only elected within their precincts. So there's 4 precincts. And Tarrant County last changed the commissioners' court precincts in, I think it was 2011. So it's been 14 years. I think the number I saw, we've had added 400,000 people since they were last redrawn.
And even at the state level, we do 10 years already.
So it's been more than 10 years since Tarrant County redrew this. But I think here's the key thing. What happened was we have a county that, let's just take the last election, the 24 election. President Trump won Tarrant County by, I think, 50,000 votes. Our tax assessor won Tarrant County. I think he won by a little over 11 percentage points. We every single countywide office is held by a Republican. This is a Republican county. Now, Democrats don't like to hear that, but it's a Republican county, and the numbers prove it out year after year after year after year. But our commissioners' court maps are drawn in a way where it's 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Well, that doesn't reflect the actual population of the county to begin with. So, but you can redraw these maps based on partisan purposes. That's the law of the land. That is Supreme Court law. So after 2020, Dallas County, Harris County, Travis County, and Bexar County all redrew commissioners' court maps. 2 of those counties drew it in a way that eliminated Republican seats altogether.
Wow.
And put in a Democrat in place for Republican. 2 of them just widened the margins of Democrats. And so Tarrant County, like it did on many other things when it come to conservative things, lagged behind. And so you can redraw the maps for partisan purposes. Well, what Republican wouldn't have the ability to do that wouldn't, knowing what Democrats do? I mean, if we just sat there and said, no, we're going to keep it as is, well, if we were to ever lose the commissioners' court, and it would be a 3-2 Democrat majority instead of the 3-2 Republican majority, we know exactly what they would do. We have seen what they've done in those 4 counties. We know what they'll do. So we redrew it. We redrew it in a way, I mean, voters still have to turn out. People still have to run campaigns. But we drew it in a way where it should elect, if the voters get out by the numbers we see, it should elect 3 Republicans. I campaigned on doing this. I sat in many a home and said we would do this. I met with many people, said we would do this. The list of people who've heard me say this is in the hundreds, if not thousands. And this is what we said we would do, and we did exactly what we said we would do. And this, basically the seat that you would say we redrew would basically be precinct 2, but all of them were modified. That was always the one we were going to do, and it was always going to be after January of 2025. We've done it, and more Republicans need to take this kind of step. I think far too often Republicans cede territory, and Democrats take it. Well, we've flipped the script.
Amen.
And now we're gonna take territory.
And I think it's really important to point out, we actually did an episode, a solo episode on this, explaining the political question behind this whole thing. I sat through 3 of these 4 or 5 meetings, whatever it was.
And thank you for being there, by the way.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
I heard the war stories.
And it was awful. And all I heard was racism. And, and at one point, a number of people actually said, see, Commissioner Krause, you admitted you wanted to do it for political reasons. My response is, duh, you're doing the same thing. Like, that's what this is all about. Do you want a liberal county or a conservative county? As a people who have a right to self-government, we have a right to decide that. There's no law of nature that says, well, for 4 years you get to be Democrat, and for 4 years you get to be Republican. No. We want a righteous government because that's based on Romans chapter 13. We're not going to the Quran or the atheist Bible or the satanic Bible for instructions.
Well, every state in the country redraws their congressional maps. Every state in the country redraws their legislative maps, and the ones that are in authority draw them in a way to make sure that they continue to get to govern. I mean, this is, when you get right down to it, this is a team sport, and just, it's this simple for me. I believe Republicans provide better governance in pretty much every single area. Better financial stewardship.
100%.
Better protection of the population. Better at law enforcement. better at cutting taxes, better at eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. And, just look at the federal government and the DOGE work that was done by Elon Musk and people in the Trump administration. Look at the waste they found. Democrats should be embarrassed and humiliated for what was found. But you know what? Republicans let some of that stuff go too.
That's so true.
And Republicans promoted that stuff too. So don't hear me to say Republicans are perfect.
Right.
We all do
That's
everything
exactly it.
perfectly, and Democrats do everything bad.
Right.
There are plenty of things you can point to about Republicans that we're not doing this right. We let this go. We let stuff happen. That's not okay. We had a department at the county that I believe it was in 2009 didn't exist. And by the end of 22, this before I got there, it had ballooned up to something like 73 people. God. And it was called Criminal Courts Administration. And what it did, 73 people from nothing, in 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And it just became such a bureaucratic minefield, and it slowed down justice. And so when I say Republicans aren't perfect, well, this was supposedly 3 Republicans, sometimes even 4, that let this happen. So you got to have the right Republicans that are willing to make change and find this waste, fraud, and abuse. We eliminated some positions there. We cut some costs. We have, over the last 2 years, cut $58 million out of our operating budget.
Wow.
We put in a homestead exemption for the first time in the history of the county, reduced spending, and we cut property taxes. The old thing that happens with people on city councils and school boards, they cut your tax rate by a penny, knowing they're getting a 10% increase. The penny cuts it maybe by 1%, maybe 2%. So now it's still a tax increase, but they run around telling you we cut your taxes.
Oh, yeah. And they just cut the rate.
We actually did it. We actually cut the rate below no new revenue 2 years in a row for both the county, and the hospital district, and produced actual property tax cuts where people paid less to the county government than they did the year before. And then we did it again the next year.
It's fantastic. But to the left, that doesn't matter.
And what services? What services did we lose? None.
Well, here's what I love about it. When we're talking about the dynamics that will shift with new redistricting, is it's now not 2-2 and you're the swing. It's now 3-1 and you get to quite literally just govern. So it's this beautiful thing. I have watched as you ran your race, and you ran as a hardcore conservative believer and unapologetic. Just these are my beliefs. I'm a follower of Christ. I love Texas. I love everything about Tarrant County, and I'm here to fight for it. And then what I hear constantly, and we'll kind of end it with this. What I hear constantly from elected officials is, well, Nate, you don't understand. I've got a business community that doesn't want to hear about my faith, doesn't want to hear about this. And what I've watched you do, and this is a huge testament to you and your mentorship and speaking into my life on it too, I have watched you fight for the business community while still standing for your faith. And so you've now built this coalition of the business community that maybe naturally doesn't lean towards the social issues because they're focused on low taxes and creating an environment for Texas to be number 1 in business, which is good. And yet you have taken stands that I believe the business community approves of because they're like, no, this guy's taking care of the issues we care about too. Talk to me about the 10 Commandments and talk to me about how you stewarded that while also fighting for the business community at the same time.
Yeah, so our nation's heritage, we are a nation founded upon a belief in God. And the revisionist historians like to say that's not the case, and a lot of times they'll point to Thomas Jefferson.
Yep.
But I mean, the stats, if you just look at them, are staggering. It reminds me a little bit of the Bible. There is no book that is more findable to be proven through history outside of the Bible. And if you want to question it and look at it, Lee Strobel, y'all know him.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Case for Christ.
Yep.
Yeah, this was I think he was an atheist, but he was an incredibly intelligent guy, very studious. He was a writer, a journalist. Yeah. Back when there actually was such a thing. Yeah. And so he said, "Man, I'm going to go prove that there's no God." And then the more he studied, and the more he learned, and the more he went back and saw, he said, "Well, not only is there a God, this is the God And Jesus is the only path. And now this guy's become a devout Christian. I mean, a complete total turnabout. And that's the power of the gospel.
Right.
Yeah.
But so it's there. So the business community, the business community is not this one thing that is groupthink.
Yeah.
There are people in the business community who are liberal. There are people in the business community who are conservative. There are people in the business community who are very conservative. And then there are people in the business community that, they don't like the direction of the country in a lot of ways, but they're more concerned about business issues. I think the mistake we made is part of us on the Republican side. For so long, we did this, let's focus on taxes and spending. Let's focus on the economy, and ignored the social. Now, not all Republicans did that, but I think that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Because I think having the right social values leads to prosperity. And we're not talking about the prosperity gospel. We're talking about just honoring people and doing the right thing and not going off the deep end, and good sound business principles and fair regulations and low taxes and limited government, all those things. We passed, I guess this is probably about 2 months ago, we approved a 10 Commandments monument going in front of the old 1895 courthouse.
Come on.
The 1895 courthouse in downtown Fort Worth is the most iconic building we have. It's incredible. My office is literally right across the street from it, overlooks it. Fascinating. Another story, when I get there, like they've got the blinds down. Like I've got 8-10 windows that look out on the courthouse. Like they got the blinds down, and I'm like, who would do this? I pulled everything up.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful view of the sky. I can see storms coming in, but it's always that old historic courthouse backdrop. So we're going to put that in front of the courthouse, I think probably sometime in September now, I think is when it's going to happen. And it's a testament to what our nation was founded upon, where we get our laws.
Yes.
All of our laws in this country start from the 10 Commandments. Yep. That's where they came from. That's the basis. That's the starting point. The business community wants you to cut taxes. The business community wants you to have fair regulations. The business community wants you to do something where you allow them to do what they do. You will never hear me say, I created this many jobs in Tarrant County. The only jobs I can create in Tarrant County are the ones inside the government. So we let the business people, of which I used to be once upon a time, and we let the business community do what they do, which is create jobs, foster innovation, expand their facilities, grow, try to prosper. That's capitalism.
Yeah.
And the more people we have with good paying jobs, the better it is for everybody. It drives the economy. And our state, we are the best state to do business in every year, depending on what poll or ranking thing you look at, 13, 14 years in a row. Yep. Texas is the best place to do business. And then when the business community knows that you're going to support them, you're not going to put unnecessary and undue burdens on them, they're going to have a low regulatory environment, there's going to be low taxes, and you're going to encourage people to come here, then if you do other things, that they're supportive.
Yes.
And I try to have a good relationship with everyone. I try to have a good relationship with Democrats. With some Democrats, that's very hard to do. But, for the ones that you can talk to, and I'll talk to them anytime, but you do have some folks on the Democrat side that are, they're just vicious and mean and ugly.
Yeah.
And if these emails we get all the time, my word, you actually feel sorry for people that somebody out of Indiana would take the time to sit there and write some dude like me, halfway across the country, some terrible message. It's sad.
Well, what you just laid out, though, is what I believe the blueprint for how, we talk a lot about on For Liberty and Justice podcast, that we want to mobilize the church, wake up the city, take a stand for liberty and justice in the governmental realm. I think what can be misinterpreted there from our standpoint is we just got to rah, rah, rah and shout from the church, when in reality, I actually believe that there is a God-given blueprint to where the business community partners with believers and the church vocalizes these are the values that our government must stand by. And the business community is honored because we believe that that the prosperity of the people is not anti-Bible, it's God's plan. He wants Christians to walk in faith, and he wants to bless his children. And so I love what you said, that when we honor the values, the biblical values in our community, then everything prospers. The business community, everything. And so, looking out to anyone else that's watching, I've had elected officials from around the country. In Florida, I had an elected official reach out to me. In Arizona, I had an city elected official reach out to me. What encouragement would you give them who maybe they are straddling this line of, I'm terrified to be vocal about my faith because I'm scared that I'm going to lose the business community? This is a common theme that I hear, is that, Nate, if I go too far in that direction, then I'm going to lose this. What would you say to those people as it relates to leading spiritually in their position?
That's a great question. So I have not experienced some kind of anti-faith thing that I've seen in the business community. We're not going to please everyone all the time, and nor should anyone try. That's not a way to lead. That's not possible.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the world is full of politicians who try to please everyone all the time and then end up almost pleasing no one.
Yeah.
But the most important thing we are called to do is love God. The two greatest commandments.
Amen.
Love God, love others.
Yep.
And so that comes first. And when you put God first and they see that's genuinely who you are and what you believe, I think most people respect that, even if they don't believe it. So even if they're not believers. Matt Krause, friend of ours.
Incredible.
Been a state rep for, I think he was 10 years.
My predecessor.
Yeah, now he's on the commissioner's court, and he has tremendous respect in the business community. They want to be listened to. They want to be heard. And most people, I don't know anybody who has a bad word to say about Matt Krause. When I grow up, I hope I can be like Matt Krause. Okay, and for the people from Florida, from Arizona, for anyone watching, number one, honor God. That's what He calls you to do. Do it in a way that's respectful, that's decent, that's compassionate. People will respond to that, and then, but we do far more in government. We have to make sure we have a jail.
Yeah.
We have to make sure we have courts. We have to make sure that we have roads. There's all kinds of things we do, but I fully believe I've seen this my entire life. God blesses His children.
Amen.
And at the end of the day, we're not here to please man. We are here to please Him. And if you never forget that, I don't know how you can even say, well, gosh, I'm afraid to talk about God. Well, that's what He calls us to do. And His plans never fail. His blueprint is the blueprint for life, and it exists in the book that He gave us that we can all look at and learn from every day. And it is so deep, and you can read it from cover to cover.
Yes.
And then you can turn around immediately thereafter and start reading it to cover and discover new things.
Amen.
And it's amazing how He uses the Holy Spirit to teach us things and help us to see things that we didn't see before, or based on where we are in life, now this applies to me and I understand it where I didn't understand how it would before. It is a living, breathing, it's the living, breathing Word of God that He gave us for all to follow. And if our country, even when, whenever this is, let's say the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even before this slide away from Christianity that we've seen in America, back then, even if people weren't believers, they still followed the basic tenets of the Bible, and that was the unifying thing of our country. Now we have so many people that don't know anything about Jesus, that they don't believe, but they don't even subscribe to the things that almost 95% of us subscribe to.
100%.
And that's why we have such turmoil, I think, in our culture.
Yeah.
It's beautifully said. I want to encourage you. That message that we just heard from Judge Tim O'Hare is brilliantly worded, that there is a way, to straddle this line of my faith comes first. And at the same time, I am not called to abandon the calling of being a unifier of those in our business community and in our county. And I really believe this. I believe that what we're seeing from the leadership in our county right now is that I believe more in the general community that may be far from Christ will actually come to know Christ because they watch the fruits of walking with the Holy Spirit being the success of leading a county that doesn't have riots in the streets and doesn't have police being, bottles being thrown at police and see strong law enforcement and strong families and creating the most family-friendly environment within the county in Tarrant County. And so I'm grateful for your leadership. I'm grateful for the direction that I believe not just our county, but our country is headed under our president. And here's what I would encourage you. Final thing is that Judge O'Hare said something just a second ago that I think is really, really important. And he talked about putting God over man. And I want to just remind you that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of ending the fear of man. And as our fear of the Lord grows, that, you know what, it doesn't matter what man thinks. I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to do it with love, and I'm going to do it boldly, unapologetically. I truly believe the Lord's going to give you favor as you are running, as you're supporting candidates. But hear me on this. We as believers cannot shrink back. Every election matters. Every single seat matters, whether it's county government, city government, school boards, state government, federal government, you name it. Every single person has a part to play. And now is the time to rise up. Now is the time to run. Now is the time for us to get godly men and women elected to office to hold righteous views inside of every level of government. Hey, thank you for joining us today on the For Liberty and Justice podcast. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And we'll see you next time as we continue to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice together. Hey, thanks so much for watching the For Liberty and Justice podcast, where we seek to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice in the governmental realm. Hey, look, we'd love for you to follow us on all of our social media at For Liberty and Justice. Subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend. And if you're looking to get involved, we'd love for you to either launch a chapter or join a chapter in your local area so we can keep fighting for liberty and justice together. You can do that by going to forlibertyandjustice.us and signing up today. Let's keep fighting to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice together.